news. It is June 5th, 2026, and I got some exquisite news for you because Victor Osimhen has been offered to Barcelona, but that's not all. That's not all because Julian Alvarez is incredibly unhappy with what's going on at Atletico de Madrid. I'm going to tell you why. And finally, Rafa Yuste has responded to Atletico de Madrid. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Boo. Welcome to another Barca News podcast, which is on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but we also get to interact with you lovely people, my Barca News family. So please start dropping comments in the chat section so I can start reacting to them in between news segments. And as always, podcast day is, of course, my favorite day because, well, I get to talk to you guys live. It's not the same reading comments on a video as opposed to reading a chat and being able to react to it live. So let's get this going. Anyways, for those of you who will be watching when it ends, of course, I will be putting timestamps in the description and chat is in that timeline in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Even though, as I always say, I recommend against it because I feel like the discussion is always the best part of the podcast. This is why I love the podcast. But if that's not your thing, that's okay. Chapters will be there. So check them out, and you can just listen to the news and then be done with it. Now, of course, as always, I got to remind you, 3 important things. Drop a like. Very, very important. It's probably the most important thing you could do if you want to help this channel. If you don't want to help this channel, that's okay. I still appreciate you watching. But if you want to help the channel grow, hit the like button. Very important. It prompts the algorithm to recommend the channel to people who've never seen it. 2, drop a comment. If you're watching this when it ends, if you're watching this live, drop a comment in the chat section. And then finally, subscribe. Why? Because here you're going to get the most up-to-date news in regards to our beloved club, FC Barcelona. So subscribe to make sure you get all the notifications from the videos and lives that I do. Now, if you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys, merchandise, or any merchandise from any football team around the world, you can head to Kitbag. If you're looking for merchandise from other sports team, not other sports team, but yeah, I guess it is other sports team, but other sports aside from football, you can head to a Fanatics. All links are in the description. You click on them, you get access to offers, deals that otherwise you would not get access to if you went straight to those websites without using the link. And of course, if you want to place any sports bets, especially with the World Cup right around the corner, you can head to Bet Us. If you use the link in the description, I think you get $150 free or something like that. Maybe $200. I can't remember. But you get some free money. And who doesn't want some free money? Anyways, let's begin with the news. And the first segment of news, as always, is comprised of multiple bits of news combined together for the sake of brevity. And I got to tell you, man, we got a lot of hot and spicy news this time. A lot. And I'm not talking about the McDonald's sandwich. Okay? I'm talking about the news. By the way, I see someone talk about the volume. I've addressed this before. It's not on my end, okay? Some people are telling me the volume is great. Some people tell me it's too low. Some people told me, oh, it used to be low, now it's great. Some other people told me it used to be loud, now it's low. I haven't changed my volume settings in months. I haven't changed anything. So if it's changed for you, I guarantee you it's on your side. You might want to check your settings. YouTube has a setting where it levels off volume. For videos who are too loud. It'll bring it down so that way the ads are not too loud. Like if you're not watching and all of a sudden the ad pops up and it scares you, check those settings. But please stop bringing up the volume. The volume is fine on my end. Check it on your end. But anyways, that's all I got to say about the volume. I don't want to see that shit again in the chat section or in the comment section. But anyways, let's get back to the news. Because we do have to talk about the preseason because we are getting more and more information about Barcelona's preseason. As you know by now, Barcelona are not going to do a preseason tour like they usually do. For example, last year they went to Korea and Japan. The year before that, they came to the U.S. No preseason tour. Why? Because, of course, there's a World Cup, right? The players are going to be tired, and it's going to be even more tiring to be traveling around the world doing a tour. So instead, the team's going to fly to England. They're going to train in St. George's Park. That's where the English national team trains. So they're going to be training there. And they're going to be there between the dates of July 27 to August 3rd or 4th. Now, the preseason is going to begin before that, right? The preseason is expected to begin around, I think, July 13th or 14th. But, of course, at the beginning, it's going to be at the Ciudad Esportiva. Why? Because there's going to be a lot of players missing. Actually, most of the players are going to be missing. It's mostly going to be players who haven't went into the World Cup, who haven't played in the World Cup. So they'll start at the Ciudad Esportiva, and then as more players join, eventually the team will fly to St. George's Park between July 27th. On July 27th, and they'll stay there until August 3rd or 4th. Of course, I'm sure there's going to be some players who will be missing depending on how far they go with their national teams. Like, for example, if they go all the way to the final, they could be missing the beginning of the preseason in St. George's Park. But nonetheless, most of the team is expected to be in England between July 27th to August 3rd or 4th. But there's more. There's more details because Barcelona are set to play 2 friendly matches in England. One that's going to be behind closed doors, so no fans, and it's going to be either Watford or Stoke City. Both of them are second division teams. And then there will be a second friendly match. That one's going to be open doors. And that one's going to be on July 31st at St. Andrew's Stadium against Birmingham City. Okay. So those are, which also second division. I think they won the championship with the second division, if I'm not mistaken, and they're going to be promoted to the Premier League. But both friendlies going to be against second division teams. And if you wonder, Mo, what the hell? Like, this is not really a real opponent. Well, look, again, players are going to be very tired from the World Cup. So these are friendlies to kind of get back into competitive rhythm, try things out. These are not friendlies for the players to go all out, 100% intensity. Now, of course, then the team will come back to Barcelona, and the weekend of August 16th, they should be the Joan Gamper Trophy match. We still don't have an opponent. It was supposed to be Ajax, but Ajax are going to be playing the European competition qualification, or playoffs, I should say. So no Ajax. We'll see who will be that Joan Gamper Trophy match. And they're talking about possible friendly match for the sake of money, because without a preseason tour, that's a lot of lost income for Barcelona. Barcelona have received an invite from Morocco to play against a local side. And Barcelona have also received an invite to play against River Plate in Buenos Aires, Argentina. For some reason, I just don't see that one happening because, if the team were to fly all the way to Argentina to play against River Plate, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of doing a preseason in England as opposed to doing a preseason tour, right? Because you're still subjecting the players to an incredibly long flight, to a change in time zone, play a match, another long flight back, another change of time zone. So I don't see the Argentina one happening. Maybe the Morocco one, because after all, Morocco's right there off the coast of Spain. So it's very close. It's a much shorter flight, plus no difference in the time zone. Or if there is, it's probably like an hour or something like that. But yeah, so those are the plans so far. St. George's Park starting July 27th until August 3rd or 4th. A closed friendly match, or closed door friendly match against Watford or Stoke City. And then an open door friendly match on July 31st against Birmingham City. And then, of course, Joan Gamper Trophy. We'll see Barcelona play another friendly match against a different team. Anyways, now let's move on to the next bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona could be making money off Serginho Dest this summer. Now, as you know, Barcelona signed Serginho Dest, I can't remember what year. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken, around there. 2020 maybe, from Ajax. Was not really a fruitful signing, so Barcelona ended up loaning him to PSV Eindhoven in hopes that he can, secure a spot there. He ended up blowing his ACL, so Barcelona ended up transferring Serginho Dest on a free transfer, so pretty much giving the player away to PSV Eindhoven. But they did retain 20% of his rights, and now Serginho Dest had just came off a pretty good season in the Dutch league. So once again, he's attracting attention from other European clubs, including Bayern Munich and some Premier League clubs who are interested in signing him. PSV Eindhoven are thinking about selling him for around 20 to 25 million euros. And of course, if that does happen, then Barcelona will make 20% of that. So if he's sold for 20 million, they'll make 4. If he's sold for 25, they'll make 5 million euros. So that, of course, is good news, because the more money Barcelona make, well, the more money they'll have to spend this summer transfer market, especially since we're going to be under the 1-1 rule, where for every euro you make, you can spend that full euro on a signing. Now, the last bit of news of this first segment is in regards to Marc Casado, because as I told you before, Monaco became very interested in the Barcelona midfielder. His name came up during the negotiations with Jorge Mendes. Jorge Mendes is, of course, Ansu Fati's agent. He was finalizing the transfer of Ansu Fati to Monaco, and Jorge Mendes also represents Marc Casado, so he brought up his name. Monaco became very interested, but now they have pulled out of the race. Why? Because of the price. Barcelona won at least 20 million euros for Marc Casado, and, it's not in the books for Monaco. So Monaco officially withdrawing from the race for Marc Casado. So that's not going to happen. But, of course, there are other clubs interested in him, Premier League, Saudi Arabia. But for now, we don't even know if Casado is going to leave. On one hand, he wants to stay at the club. He said he wants to retire at Barca. But on the other hand, he is 22 years old. He needs minutes. And in Barcelona, he's not getting them. So we'll see what happens with Marc Casado. But for now, Monaco out of the picture because they cannot afford his transfer fee. All right, let's start with the comment section. Then we are going to talk about Victor Osimhen being offered to Barcelona. Nathan says Osimhen better than Julian Alvarez, but it will all depend on financial fair play, who will be next on the list for Barca's defense, because Bastoni won't be possible. I disagree with that. Is Osimhen better than Julian at being a 9? Yes, because Osimhen is a pure 9, is an actual 9. But is he overall a better player? No, I don't think so. I think for starters, they're very different players, right? Very different players. And second, I think Julian is a much more complete profile. Now, again, if they're going head-to-head, who's a better center forward? Yeah, Osimhen is. But overall, as a player, no, I don't think Osimhen is better. I mean, there's a reason Osimhen is playing in Turkey, right? As opposed to Julian, who's in La Liga, and, half of Europe is fighting over him. Again, not to take away from Osimhen, I think he's an incredible center forward. We're going to talk about him in a little bit, but I wouldn't go as far as saying he's better than Julian. Alan says, Mo, who would be your 4 captains for next year? That's a good question. So, obviously, Ter Stegen is out open and leave, so that's going to be a spot open for him, and then the rest are going to stay the same because the rest are staying. But if I were to scratch everything, right, and be like, we're taking away the captain bands from everyone, and we're starting from scratch, who would be my captains? All right, let me think. I think Gabi needs to be a captain. We've seen it on the field, how he's always like talking to his teammates, encouraging them. His intensity alone, makes him a great captain, because the way he plays, like, he motivates his teammates just by playing through example, right? But on top of that, he's also, you've seen it, he's a leader in the field. He's very vocal. He's always encouraging his teammates, ordering them and things like that. So not only does he lead by example, but he's also a captain that knows how to lead as well, through not just action and example, but also through, being vocal and helping with the organization of the team. So Gabi for sure. I think Rafinha might not perhaps be as vocal as Gabi, or someone that necessarily is like helping the organization of the team on the field, but he leads by example, right? The fact how he gives it all, I think that right there motivates his teammates, because they're like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's freaking giving it all, and I'm over here freaking jogging. Jules Koundé. So Rafinha as well. Gabi, Rafinha, let me think. I think Araujo, not because I'm like super impressed with him or anything, but from the interviews, all players say that he's an incredible leader in during practice, in the locker room. Even when he's not playing, when he's on the bench, he's always like being a leader. So if his teammates see him as a leader and they think he's a great leader, who am I to say no? So Araujo. And then my 4th captain would be, let me think. Who could be the 4th captain? Let me think. We said Rafinha. Maybe Fermin. Even though Fermin, I don't see him as a leader, but he would be more of a... Actually, no. I take that back. I think Bernal, at some point, he's going to be the captain, because how he leads the midfield. But he's too young right now. Too young and too inexperienced. I got it. Cubarsí. I think Cubarsí would be a good captain. He might maybe lack a little bit of experience right now as far as leadership, But I see Cubarsí being a captain in the future. So I guess if it's for next season, maybe not Cubarsí, maybe I would go with Fermin. Again, I don't see him as a leader. I think it's more of a, again, leading by example type thing. But that one for me is like, I don't know. But for sure, Gabi, Rafinha, Araujo. But of course, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Who do you guys think should be the captains? Assuming you're starting from zero, right? Because that's not how it works. That's gonna be if there's an empty spot, then someone replace them. But then they don't start from scratch every season. But if you could start from scratch, who would be your captains? Let me know. I'm very, very curious. And Gold CJ says we should get Endrick from Madrid and have an Eto'o 2.0. I don't know. I don't know if I haven't seen Endrick. I mean, I know he's shining in France, or he shined in France, I should say. But I haven't really seen him enough for me to say, yeah, that will be a good Barca player, right? Obviously, he had a good season in where was he? Was it Marseille? I think it was Marseille. But I think I would need to see a little bit more in La Liga before I say something like that, right? Because shining in Marseille or in France is different than shining in La Liga, right? I think I would need to see a little bit more. I don't know. Jose Fernandez says, whoops, hit the wrong key. Honestly, I feel Joao Pedro should be ahead of Álvarez and Osimhen. Also, no to Leao. We need quality and affordable number 9/left winger, and Gordon complements this next offensive player. So Leao is not being considered. Even though he has offered himself, and even though he is leaving Inter Milan, not being considered. As far as Joao Pedro ahead of Julian, I would say only because of the price. Quality-wise, obviously, Julian is better. But I think price-wise, yeah, Joao Pedro would make more sense, even though right now he is, I guess, priceless because Chelsea don't want to sell him. Let's see. The Rebel Pilot says, let's hope Julian eventually drops a nice guy gimmick and finally forces his way out of the trophyless prison known as Atletico Madrid. We're going to talk about Julian a little bit. He's not happy. Java the Hut says, I'm kind of annoyed that Barca went to Anthony Gordon instead of Barcola. He would have cost the same price. He's younger and he plays more like Lamine Yamal, which is what we need on the left wing. I think why Barca ended up going for Anthony Gordon, which, by the way, it seems like it was a flick request more than a Deco one. It's because of his pressing, right? And that's why they went for it. Because even though Barcola does give you a different profile, because I feel like Anthony Gordon and Rafinha are very similar profile, right? Players who play with a lot of intensity, press, help with the defense, as opposed to that dribbler, that 1v1 kind of winger that Lamine is, right? So Anthony Gordon is not really that. He's more closer to Rafinha's profile. So even though Barcola is closer to what Lamine Yamal has to offer, Barcola doesn't give you the intensity that someone like Anthony Gordon does, right? And I think that's why he also lost his spot under Luis Enrique. But don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have Barcola, but I'm just explaining on why I think Barcelona opted for Anthony Gordon as opposed to Barcola. It's that intensity angle. And the R9 Gaming says, honestly, I'd love for Barca to still sign Álvarez on top of the fact that he'd be a perfect fit. I'd love to embarrass Patetico Madrid. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We got some crazy news. Zach Urban says, hey, Mo, bro, give the current drought of nines in the market. Who would you sign for the CF? I mean, completely, we're talking about, are there restrictions on price, or are we talking about anybody's up for grabs, or are we talking about from the options that we talked about? Because that's different, right? If I had to sign anyone, I think right now Harry Kane for me. I think Harry Kane would definitely do it for me, right? Because he's putting out like crazy goals. I think he scored something like close to like 70 goals this past season. But obviously he wants to stay Bayern, so it's impossible. If Haaland, great option as well, but he's not leaving Man City, or at least not this season. But if you're telling me about what's available, who would I sign based on what's available? Uh, that's tough, you know, because neither Joao nor Julian are real number nines, but those are kind of like what Barcelona are considering. So I would probably go with Julian because that's who Flick thinks it's a better fit, right? So it just depends on what angle we're looking at. And Cornell says, Mo, what's good, bro? Happy Friday, man. Moving back to Texas next month. Osimhen is tough, but his attitude continues to haunt him. For sure, for sure. And that's a consideration for Barcelona as far as whether to go for him or not. But there's other consideration. And with that, that is a perfect time to segue to the next segment because, ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it. And, well, it's happening. Just kidding, it's not happening. But we are going to talk about Victor Osimhen, someone who people are always like, Mo, what about Victor Osimhen? He is killing it in Galatasaray. Why isn't Barcelona considering him? And, well, we kind of have an answer for that. But first, of course, we do have to talk about the fact that Osimhen has been offered to Barcelona for this summer transfer market through a third party. Now, Osimhen currently is having he already had because I guess the season is over, but Osimhen has had a spectacular season in Turkey for Galatasaray. His exact numbers, and I have him here on Transfer Market. He has scored 22 goals and provided 8 assists in 33 matches. So we're talking about a 30-goal contribution, right? 22 goals plus 8 assists. A 30-goal contribution in 33 matches. That's crazy. That's almost a one goal contribution per match. And this is just this season, right? Last season, he also went off when he got loaned to Turkey. And he ended up, when he transferred to Turkey, he ended up scoring 37 goals and provided 8 assists in 41 matches. That is a 45-goal contribution in 41 matches. That's also insane. Obviously, last season or the season before that was a little bit better, but nonetheless, his last 2 seasons have been remarkable. He's been an absolute goal-scoring machine, and well, now he's kind of like being watched by big European clubs, kind of like a return to Europe, even though Turkey is part of Europe as far as football. I mean, it sits between Europe and Asia, but football-wise, it's considered part of Europe. But we're talking about come back to the elite football, right? To elite football. And he has been offered to Barcelona. Now, what's Barcelona's response? Barcelona's response is that they value him a lot. You know, they think he would be, he's a top striker and he would be, great player to have. However, he is not a priority. And right now, Barcelona want to stick to their plan. And what is their plan? Well, it's to sign Julian Alvarez. So even though they think Osimhen is a great striker and they value his skills a lot, he's not a priority because, again, the priority remains Julian Alvarez. So Osimhen is on the list of possible options, but of course, they would only consider that list and everyone on it, including Osimhen, if the Julian Alvarez signing goes through, because right now, Julian is number 1. And you have to go after your number 1. If the number 1 doesn't work out, then you can go after your second, third, fourth, fifth option, etc., etc. So Osimhen, not a priority. Now, if you're asking why, Mo, what the hell? This guy's a goal-scoring machine. Why wouldn't Barcelona want him? Well, the reason why, and this is coming from the club, not from me, is that Barcelona consider that Julian Alvarez is a more complete profile, right? Osimhen, great as a striker, great scoring goals, but Julian, in the club's eyes, has more to offer. They see him as a more complete player where he can also play as a 9, but a 9 that can, combine with his teammates, right? Because not only can Julian push the ball and score it, but he can also distribute it, right? Sometimes he acts as a 10 as opposed to just a 9, right? Sometimes we see him play behind other other forwards and, give him those crazy passes that you see coming from number 10. So he's a number 9 who can also combine with others. He's also an attacker that can drop in between lines. He's someone that can drop to the midfield to grab the ball and help unlock defenses. He can dribble, score free kicks. He's in my eyes, honestly, he's more of a number 10 that plays as a 9, right? So that's what Barcelona see, that Julian is more of a complete profile. He offers you more than someone like Osimhen, even though, again, Barcelona consider Osimhen a top striker, but they look at Julian as someone with more tools in their box. Let's put it that way. So Osimhen being offered Barca value him, but not really a priority. Now, I know how this will make a lot of you sad because a lot of you have been saying, Mo, Osimhen. But here's a silver lining, okay? The silver lining is that we're back, right? We're back. We're talking about in 1 week, talking about Osimhen offering himself, Vardiol offering himself, and Vlahovic again, even though that might not be that big of a deal that it's Vlahovic offering himself. But nonetheless, we're back. Players want to play here. Top players, big names, the top players in the world want to play at Barcelona. And not only are they willing to play at Barcelona, but they're offering themselves to Barcelona. And this, of course, is a great, great sign. And that, of course, has to do with that we have a winning project. I mean, we have won La Liga 2 seasons in a row. We have Hansi Flick, an incredible coach that any player would love to play under him. As we've seen, Flick makes players better. And who doesn't want to play for a coach that makes you better? Lamine Yamal, right? Right now, a lot of players want to come to Barca to play with Lamine Yamal. In fact, Rashford used to say that a lot last summer before we signed him on loan, that he wanted to come to Barca to play with Lamine. Of course, players as competitive athletes, they always want to play with the best. And who doesn't want to come to Barca and play with Lamine? And then, of course, there's history, right? Barcelona, historical club, and big, giant club. So we're back, baby. That's all I got to say. That's the silver lining for me here. Players want to play here. The biggest names want to play here. And, that, of course, is great, especially after 5 years of not being under the 1-1 rule, 5 years with an asphyxiating financial fair play, 5 years where we couldn't even dream about big names. And now these big names are coming to us. They're knocking our door. So that, I think, is absolutely wonderful news. But as far as Osimhen, again, he's on the list. He's an option, but not a priority, because Barcelona have one priority right now, and that is Julian Alvarez, which we will talk about in the next segment. But first, let's get back to the comment section and do more comments. Let's see. Where are we? Where did we leave off? I don't remember. Oh, right here. Let's see. Ibrahim says, hey, Mo, you're the best when it comes to Barca news. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you, and thank you for watching. Gulam says, not going to lie, Ferran low-key going to have a great World Cup. He's still one of the best backup strikers in the world. Julian always does good with Spain, man. And Julian. Ferran. I'm getting my names mixed up. Ferran does really well with Spain. He scored that goal against Iraq. Al-Iraq. So yeah, I think he will. But you know what? I watched parts of the match against Iraq, not the whole thing. But I gotta tell you this, man. Bernal's future, the more I watch him, the brighter I see his future. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know if you guys watched the match, but the way Bernal played in that match, the way he commanded that midfield, he's Busquets, man. When I watch Bernal play, I see Busquets. Just a lot more physical, obviously, because Bernal is, a lot. He has more muscle. He has more meat on his bones, right? Because Busquets was always very, very skinny. So when I see Bernal, man, the way he turns, the way he holds the ball so easily, it makes it look easy. Obviously, what he does is nowhere near easy. But the way he distributes the ball, I mean, the way he just dictates the tempo, how he holds the midfield. When I look at Bernal, I see Busquets, except he can actually score, right? Busquets wasn't very big on scoring. I mean, we saw Bernal. Do you guys remember that goal where he makes the run, gets the pass, takes on the defender, and then kicks in? And he's like, you're looking and it's like, wait, was that Lewy? No, that's Bernal. Like, you saw him and you're like, wait, is that a striker or is that a midfielder, right? So, dude, Bernal's future, man. I remember when I said the future double pivot of Barca is going to be Pedri and Bernal. And people are, you're crazy. What are you talking about? It's Frankie, blah, blah. No, no. Bernal is going to bench Frankie. He already benched him. And he's going to continue to bench him, man. Bernal's future is just looking so bright, bro. And it sucks that he missed out on this World Cup. But he's 18 or 19 years old. He's going to have a lot more chances to go to the World Cup. But I wonder if after that match against Iraq, if Luis de la Fuente saw that and started thinking, man, what did I do? I should have taken this guy with me. But anyways, the Jeff says Álvarez is a far better player than Osimhen. I agree 100%. 100%. As a pure striker, obviously Osimhen is better because that is his position. But overall, no, Julian is better. I mean, let's be real. By the way, Julian is one of two players who have won in the entire history of football, who have won Libertadores, which, it's the equivalent of the Champions League, but in South America. Champions League, right? Libertadores, he won it with River Plate. Champions League, that he won with Man City, and World Cup. I think the only other player is Ronaldinho, if I'm not mistaken. Or might be there another third player or something like that. But it's like he's a part of an incredibly elite group of players. Very, very few in the entire history of football have won Libertadores, Champions League, and World Cup, which is crazy. Edward says, Mo, how's it going? Hope you're good. But when I mentioned Osimhen, you pulled up stats saying no way. Now, how can Álvarez stay at Atleti after all the things said about wanting to leave? We'll talk about Julian a little bit on what's happening with him at Atletico. I think he's going to leave, honestly. At this point, I mean, the more time goes by, the more we're getting to the point of no return. I don't think we're there yet, but we're slowly getting there. And eventually, once you get to the point of no return, they're just going to have to let him leave. But Klaus says, make Eric fourth. I like that. I like Eric as fourth captain. Yeah. The Rebel Pilot says, Endrick was on loan to Lyon. Thank you. I remember it was some League on club. I couldn't remember if it was, which one is it? But it's Lyon. And the Jeff says, Barcola is a good dribbler, and that's it. Horrible at the final action. He's so bad. It's like he freezes when he gets into the box. I've watched that guy a lot, and I liked him at first, but no more. He does have a little bit trouble finishing, but here's the thing about finishing. That's always something that can be worked on. Remember Vinicius? When Vinicius joined Real Penalties, he was awful at finishing. I mean, that guy could not pass a ball or kick a ball or score a goal to save his own life. His finishing was so horrible. It was terrible. But, you could see that, okay, this guy, if he works on his finishing, he's gonna be incredibly dangerous because, you could see his speed, you can see his dribbling, you can see how he can take on defenders easily. So you're like, all right, well, that's the hard part. He has the hard part down, no problem. The problem was his finishing. And lo and behold, he fixed his finishing. And bam, he became, the best left winger up until the whole Ballon d'Or debacle. And now he's just back to being a clown as opposed to being a great left winger, which is unfortunate, right? Unfortunate. If Vinicius let his football speak instead of his mouth, if he stayed quiet and just focused on playing, man, he would, everybody would be like, pray, oh, Vinicius. But instead, everybody hates him because the guy won't shut the fuck up. So, as far as finishing, I do agree. Barcola is not that great with finishing, but that usually, to me, it's not that big of a deal if they already have everything else down, like the dribbling and all that, because that's the hard part. That's the part that you cannot learn, right? Finishing, you can learn that. You can work on that. You can improve that. So he's already has the hard part down. And P4K Chema says Ekitike is out of World Cup and injured till 2027. With Isaac performing the way he is now, Isaac, Liverpool may want to sell Ekitike and his value would decrease by then. Perfect striker. Yeah, but then what good is a striker that's going to come and is going to be injured, right? We need someone right away to start the season. Well, hopefully the preseason so he can adapt to the team and then start the season. Eldrin says, Mo, would you sign Bernardo Silva? Personally, no. I've said it multiple times on this channel. I think the best years of Bernardo Silva are behind him, right? And based on his most recent interviews, where he's always talking about, oh, wanted to go to a destination with good weather and good food and a beach, that to me sounds like a player who's no longer hungry. I'm not saying he cannot contribute to the team. Of course he is. He's a world-class midfielder with tons of experience. I think he could contribute, but I just don't see that hunger in his eyes. And that it's very important for a team that wants to win the Champions League, that hasn't won the Champions League in so long, and for a team that aspires to not only win the Champions League, but to win everything, right? We're not a team like, we're not like Real penalties or like, oh, we're only going to focus on this competition. Barca always aims to win everything. And that's why we have 2 trebles and they have 0. So for a team that aims to win everything, for a team that wants to win the Champions League, we need those players who are really, really hungry, because that's going to make the difference, especially towards the end of the season, right? That's when players really start to get tired, exhausting. Fatigue just sets in, right? You've been playing for 6-7 months. You've played 4 competitions. You've had a million FIFA breaks, because that's how it is now. And then fatigue is setting in. And, when you're that tired, when your leg's about to give out, when you can't breathe, when your heart's going to jump out of your chest, that's when the hungry players will push past the breaking point, as opposed to the ones who they're just there to end their career, But Flick has okayed it. Flick has greenlit it. So fuck it, bring him. Flick says yes. Who am I to say no, right? And my other problem, of course, with Bernardo Silva is like, we have a million midfielders. Sure, he could play as a right winger, but I guess he would be a good substitute for Lamine. But the question is he gonna wanna be a substitute for Lamine, because Lamine is 19 or 18, 19. So he has the energy and the recovery and all that to be able to play most matches. So is Bernardo Silva gonna be okay playing very, very little minutes like Rooney Bardghji? I don't know. Anyways, Radion says, can he play 2 times better than Osimhen, since he is going to cost 2 times what? No, he's not going to cost 2 times Osimhen. They're saying Galatasaray would want to sell Osimhen north of 100 mil. So no, he's not. Unless Julian's going to cost north of 200, which I'm not aware of that. But no, he's not going to cost twice as Osimhen. Let's see. Gold CJ says, I do think providing Osimhen is surrounded by the right players attitude-wise, in which we play as an actual team, I think he would be perfectly fine, as he'd be treated like family. Maybe, it's a very real possibility. Nothing crazy about that. But do you want to take the gamble, right? If you have 2 players, one is gonna have the right attitude and be a team player and blah, 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 and all the things, ticks all the boxes. And you have another player who maybe could do that or maybe not. Which one would you rather? The guaranteed one or the one that he might and maybe not, right? So that's where that plays in, right? Yeah, and you could be right. Maybe, under Flick, being the coach that he is and knows how to manage players in this locker room, maybe, yeah, he's like, oh, shit, I got to be a team player here, and he does fix his attitude. But there's also a chance that he doesn't. If you can get a player who he's going to have a good attitude regardless, then you're obviously going to opt out for the one who's a guarantee as opposed to the one who's a coin flip. But anyways, speaking of Julian Alvarez, let's move on to the next bit of news. And this is big. This is big, because it has some serious implications in the pursuit of the Argentine. Because today, news coming out of Argentina stating that Julian Alvarez is incredibly dissatisfied, unhappy, frustrated with what's going on with Atletico de Madrid. He feels betrayed because of how they are behaving. Now, let's recap before I explain to you why Julian Alvarez feels betrayed, unhappy, frustrated, angry, you name it. Well, we go back first to the month of February. By then, Julian Alvarez was already disappointed with Atletico Madrid's project. Of course, he would be. It's trash. And he sat down with the CEO of Atletico Madrid, Miguel Ángel Gilmarín. Okay? And during that meeting, Julian expressed that he was no longer happy with the project, that he was wanting to leave, and that he wanted to go to Barca because Julian has always dreamt of playing at Barca. You know, his ultimate idol and hero is Messi, and many of these players, you know, watching Messi at Barca has made him want to come to Barca. Julian's dream, even before he joined Atletico, even when he was at City, there was always talks about him wanting to play at Barca, right? So he told Miguel Ángel Gilmarín that he wanted to leave and that he wanted to go to Barca. And Miguel Ángel Gilmarín gave him his word that, okay, you'll go to Barca, but of course, we're not going to give you away. You know, Barca's going to have to make a really good offer, blah, blah, blah. And Julian understood, you know, at the end of the day, business is business. And, you know, Barca are going to have to put up money. That was in February. Now, fast forward to April. Julian has a messed up ankle, right? Has an injured ankle. And they had the semifinals against Arsenal. Now, Julian, despite him wanting to leave, he still, of course, wanted to give his all to Atletico Madrid because at the end of the day, he is an Atletico Madrid player. He decided that he was going to risk his health, risk his spot in the World Cup, and that's huge, right? The World Cup only comes once every 4 years, for Atletico Madrid. And despite the doctors warning him not to play, Julian decided to get himself injected with painkillers, and he played the semifinals. In fact, he got injected 3 times, right? And that, by the way, is very, very risky because when they inject you, you don't feel the pain. You don't lose full sensation, right? You can still feel your foot, but it does dull the pain. And it's dangerous, of course, because you're still playing injured. And obviously playing injured can worsen the injury. Not to mention that sometimes because your foot is a little dull, you can end up misstepping, not stepping the right way, and making the injury worse, breaking a ligament, fracturing your ankle, because if you can't feel it that well, you're not going to step on it that well. But anyways, he risked his health. He risked his spot in the World Cup for Atletico de Madrid. And how are Atletico Madrid repaying him after A, promising him that, okay, they would let him go to Barca, and B, him risking his health for them? Well, they repaid him by not even responding to Barca's offer. Now, after Julian reached an agreement to join Barcelona with Barca, I told you guys about that 4-hour meeting between Deco Hidalgo, who's Julian Alvarez's agent, and Juanma Lopez, who's acting as an intermediary. They met for 4 hours. They reached an agreement. Julian would join Barca for 5 years. They agreed on the salary and all of that. After that, Barcelona sent a 90 million euro offer fixed plus 10 million in variables, so a total packet of 100 million. They sent it to Matteo Alemani's email, and even though initial news was that Atletico had rejected it, in fact, they did it. They didn't even respond, which, of course, is disrespectful. Like, at least have the decency of picking up the phone and say, no, not good enough, or fuck you, no thank you, or something. But nothing. They completely ignored it. And not even did they ignore the offer, then they went on the offensive, making a fool out of themselves with those tweets, making those fake, we're going to sign Lamine. We've offered Bad Bunny tickets for him, and Rafinha and Pedri, and then that tweet invoking Negreira. So they ignore the offer completely, and then they deny ever receiving the offer. And that has completely pissed off Julian, because he's like, you promised me that, okay, you would let me go to Barca. I give everything to you, including risking my health and my spot in the World Cup, and you repay me by not even having the decency of responding to a very serious offer by Barca, because Barca are offering him 100 million. So this has angered Julian. He's not happy whatsoever, and he feels betrayed by the club that promised him they would let him go and a club that he gave everything to. So, why is this important? Well, this is important because, of course, has a very serious implication here that could help Barcelona and play in favor of Barcelona. So far, Julian didn't want to cause any ruckus, didn't want this thing to turn into a circus or leave in a bad way. He just wanted this whole thing to be treated just like any other transfer in the world, any other business transaction. He went to Atletico. Hey, I would like to go to Barca. He went to Barca. Hey, I would like to go to you guys. Please negotiate with each other. And that's it, right? Just like any normal transfer in the world. But instead, Atletico are turning this into a circus. And in the process, they're angering Julian. He feels betrayed. And this, of course, could lead Julian to then really force his exit and really make things complicated for Atletico, such as saying, I'm only going to Barca and Barca only, fuck PSG, fuck Arsenal. And now, of course, that takes away from Atletico Madrid ability to negotiate, right? Because when you have several clubs interested in a player, you can play that to your favor. Hey, you're offering me 90? That guy's offering me 120. What do you got? 130? Okay, how about you? 140? Okay, and drive the price up. But now, if Barca's like, hey, 100 mil, that's all I got. Yeah, well, PSG's offering me 120. I don't care. Julian doesn't want to go there, so I don't care if PSG offer you $2 billion euros. It doesn't matter. Oh, Arsenal's also interested. I don't give a shit. They can offer you 500 million. Julian doesn't want to go there. So, you only got my offer and my offer only. You have two options. Either accept it or you keep a player that's completely unhappy with you because of how you made this whole thing into a circus after he tried to do it the right way. Your choice, Atletico Madrid. So now, this news, of course, is big because it does help Barcelona, gives Barcelona a leg up. Now, for now, Barcelona are calm. They're just waiting. They're bidding their time. So we'll see what Atletico Madrid does. Now, I think Julian will end up leaving. You know, everything's starting to point that way. But it's not going to be soon. So we're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to wait. But I think Julian will leave eventually. Obviously, it's not going to be anytime soon because the World Cup is right around the corner, which, by the way, it's crazy. I can't believe it's been 4 years. Well, technically 3.5 years since the 2022 World Cup was played in the winter, but I can't believe we're already in the 2026 World Cup. That's insane. I feel like watching Argentina lift the World Cup against France was like 6 months ago or something. But anyways, so that's an update. Big update. Huge update. Especially when you take into consideration the implications of this update. And with that, let's get back to the comment section. And then we are going to talk about Rafa Yuste's response to the circus called Atletico Madrid. All right, let's see. Dragonic says this Álvarez saga has me like, yeah, man, they should just make it. Oh, actually, they could, actually. I was going to say they should just make it into a Netflix freaking series or documentary. But they actually could because I have seen. You remember when Griezmann made a documentary about his decision? Dumbest thing ever. He was like, his contract was set to expire. And Barcelona wanted him. You know, he was like, oh, Atletico Barca. And he's like, oh, I'm going to announce my decision in a documentary. And he like hires a crew and they film this whole fucking documentary and they edit it and they set a release date and they market it and boom, release date comes and the documentary's like, I'm going to stay at Atletico. I was like, That right there should have told Bartomeu, that's it, move on. But then he was like, no, let me go after him again and pay 130 mil and then sell him back to them for 20. Fucking crazy, bro. But anyways. Wait, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, the saga. So, yeah, it could be a Netflix documentary. Dr. Knight says there's a reason why no big team is after Osimhen. Let's just think about that for a second. I mean, you're not wrong. Again, I don't want to discredit Osimhen. It's not like he's a bum who doesn't know how to play, or he's a great striker. But I can see why Barcelona would want Julian over Osimhen, right? But I mean, you're not wrong. Zach Urban says, Mo, City is considering legal action against Madrid and Riquelme for bringing up Haaland. Let's laugh at Astrid. Yeah, I saw that because Riquelme came on and he was like, yeah, we're signing Haaland and Rodri and Jesus Christ himself if I win. And it's like, Man City's like, no. Let's see. Young Braveheart says, what about Igor Thiago from Brentford? Let's look up Igor Thiago. I'm curious to see what his market value is right now. Let's see. Igor Thiago. Wow. I remember the last time I checked this dude out, I think his market value was, wait, hold on. It was like sitting at 20 mil. That is a big jump. Igor Thiago. His market value right now at 65 million with a contract until 2031. Now, I am no market expert and I am no football agent, but if I was to guess on how much Brentford would want on a player whose market value is 65 mil and who has 5 years on his contract, you're talking about north of 100. North of 100. So if you're going to spend north of 100, wow, might as well spend it on the world champion. But anyways. Let's see. What else? Barca got culture says because of the money he want. What money he want? Wait, who are we talking about? John Williams says, Mo, I think Álvarez is a better option because it will add more fluidity to our attack, making our attack unpredictable, especially when the attacking players interchange positions. Amen, my friend. Amen. And Wiz, what up, Wiz, says Silva is a perfect situational player for Lamine. And the Jeff says, Mo, Bernardo is a very professional footballer. He always gives his all on Barcola. We complain about our finishing last season. Barcola will make things worse. Then he's expensive. As far as Bernardo, look, I'm not doubting his professionality. I'm not doubting his skill. He's a world-class midfielder. I mean, he was key. He was elemental in that treble winning season in Man City and everything else Pep has accomplished while Bernardo is on his team. So don't get me wrong. I'm not here to take anything away from Bernardo. I'm not here to tell you he's a bum or that he sucks or that he's not good enough for Barca. Not at all. Not at all. Skill-wise, talent-wise, we know he has it. He has plenty of it. But sometimes when a player is kind of tapped out, they might, consciously speaking, still be a professional who wants to train hard and play hard, but subconsciously, there could be a different thing going on, right? Think about, for those of you who played sports, think about that one game where you gave it your all, just like any other game, but the difference was maybe that day you weren't in the right mindset, or you weren't in the right, you weren't in the right mood, or you didn't have the best of days, and how it affected your performance. Even though consciously speaking, you were still giving it your all. And skill-wise, you're still the same guy, right? You didn't forget how to play sport from one match to another. But because you weren't in the right mindset, or you were off by a little bit, and your performance got affected, right? sports psychology is huge, is a big factor in winning and losing. In fact, there's a lot of studies on this. There's a lot of research, a lot of literature on this. For example, they say the difference between the number 1 rated tennis player and the number 20 skill wise is none. It's almost non-existent. Like if you were to compare their strokes, their movement, almost identical. Like all top 20, there's hardly any difference between their skill level. But yet, so if it's the same skill level, how come guy A is number 1 and guy B is number 20? And it's all here. Psychology. That's why tennis players, part of their training is part of their staff, aside from their coach and their physical trainer, they always have a psychologist, a sports psychologist, part of their staff, because very, very important. Mind, very, very important. It's half of the battle. So yeah, Bernardo might be super skilled, super experienced, very professional, everything. Not denying that. He's world class. But if the guy is tapped out, if he's subconsciously, it's going to affect him. And might not be a big difference. It might be maybe the difference between 100% and 98. But sometimes that 1 or 2 percentage, maybe even a fraction of a percentage, sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing, right? Especially when you're talking about elite football. But anyways, Edward says, love the channel, Mo. Thanks for all the work. Press like, people. Yes, please hit the like button. D-Point says, if Julian can't take the pressure right now with a 4th quality team, poor lad when he gets into Barcelona and has to deal with the press constant harassment. Nobody's talking about Julian not being able to handle the pressure. Who said anything about Julian not being able to handle the pressure? Let's see. Mike says, hey, Mo, tell Madrid bring them all. Galacticos, Monstars. We don't give a damn. Hansi Flick will whoop them all. Pisca Barça. Amen, my friend. Amen. Let's see. Ross says, sorry for being late again, Mo. Do you know how much money Barca is getting for letting players play for Spain from FIFA? Just wondering. Thanks, Mo. Best Mo ever. Even better than Mo Salah. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. But I don't know if I compare anything to Mo Salah. Let's see. You don't really get money from FIFA for letting your players play the World Cup or anything, right? What you do get money for, if they, as a result of playing for in a FIFA event, is if they get injured for a long time. So let's hope that we make 0, right? Because if we make money, that means our players got injured in the World Cup and they're out for a long time. So let's hope 0, my friend. Let's hope 0. But let's do the last bit of news. The last bit of news is pretty short, so we can get it out of the way pretty quickly and then get back to the comment section. But let's talk about Julian. We're still talking about Julian because, as you know, after Barcelona, the news broke that Barcelona reached an agreement with Julian, and they sent a 90 plus 10 million euro offer to Atletico Madrid. Of course, Atletico Madrid decided to make a fool of themselves with those Twitter posts, saying that they have offered Bad Bunny tickets for Lamine, Rafinha, Pedri, and then they made a separate post, of course, invoking Negreira because that's everyone's favorite excuse. So far, Barcelona had not really responded to Atletico Madrid's ridiculousness. So until today, because the interim president, Rafa Yuste, and if you're saying, what the hell are you talking about? Jean Laporta. For those of you who are new to the channel or maybe didn't see those videos where I explained this, Laporta won the election, obviously, so he's the next president again. Got reelected, I should say. But, of course, he's not going to go into power until July. So between the time that he resigned back in March to run as president until July, the interim president is Rafa Yuste, who was the vice president under Laporta. And, of course, when Laporta resumes the presidency, Rafa Yuste will go back to being the vice president again. But for now, Rafa Yuste is the interim president, and he has responded to Atletico Madrid's shenanigans or circus that they did on Twitter, and this is what he had to say. In regards to the Twitter posts, he said that they were in a very bad taste, and then he continued by saying, "At Barcelona, we have a very clear way of acting as a club. I believe that education is paramount, and therefore we must continue to set an example. Myself first as president and down to the last member of the board of directors." Talk about a mic drop. In other words, he called them, well, ignorant. He called, because that's how they're behaving. He was telling them, you guys weren't raised right. And, I'm going to show you how you're supposed to act, how to behave like a civilized adult. And that's pretty much what Rafa Yuste is. I like this a lot. Honestly, to be honest, though, I would have preferred that we wouldn't have said anything, right? Just let them, right? When a child is throwing a tantrum, you just ignore them. And that's what pretty much Atletico Madrid are, children throwing tantrums. So I would have preferred not to respond at all. Just let them embarrass themselves. But if you are going to respond, I think this is the best way to respond. Say, look, it's a certain way to behave. This is not it. And, well, I'm not going to stoop down to your level. So, peace, bitches. And, yeah, good response by Rafa Yuste. But, of course, let me know what you guys think. Do you think this was a proper response? Do you think Rafa Yuste should have been maybe more aggressive and said, this what, fuck Joe, bitch, you fat motherfucker, like Tupac? Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this once it ends. And now let's do the last bit of comments, and then we'll wrap up this live, which, by the way, tomorrow I'm actually flying out to Argentina, the land of Maradona and Messi. I'm excited. I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks. I will be working from there. A lot of my coworkers live in Argentina, so I'm going to go down there, work from there. I'm going to see a lot of my coworkers. It's going to be fun. Plus, I'm going to get to watch the World Cup. Argentina plays. Obviously not in Argentina, but it'll be cool to experience how the whole country just paralyzes while to watch a match. So I'm excited for that. And of course, as always, when I travel, I'll be taking my laptop. I'll be taking my camera. I'll be making videos every day. Nothing's going to change. You're still going to get all your news. So nothing changes, except obviously you're not going to see me here in my YouTube studio. Instead, you're going to see me in some random place. So if you're wondering like, hey, Mo, what the hell happened? Why is behind you something different? It's because I will be in Argentina. I'm flying out tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make videos tomorrow because I leave in the afternoon and I don't land in Argentina until early Sunday morning, like 8 a.m. So I don't know if I'll be able to make videos tomorrow. I'm going to be mostly in the air. But Sunday, of course, Sunday I will be making videos, and every single day after that, because it doesn't stop, ladies and gentlemen. No, it does not. All right, AG says, who will be the cover for Yamal? Left side is Rafinha and Gordon. Striker Ferran and question mark Yamal and question mark Mo, who he believes should fill in the blanks. I mean, if we sign Bernardo Silva, that could easily be his replacement, right? But if not, you can always shuffle things around, right? If you do have a striker, let's say we sign Julian, and Julian is our starting center forward. He's going to be starting most of the matches. Ferran Torres is going to be resting most of the matches. So if Lamine needs to be rested, boom, you can plug Ferran there for that match, right? Since Ferran's not going to be as active if Julian is ahead of him. So he could be rested to where you can plug him in the right for Lamine. And let's say the next match you need to rest Julian, boom, you can plug Ferran into the center forward. And that'd be fine because most of the matches he's not going to play. So he'll be able to cover both positions. Same thing. Maybe Anthony Gordon has played a series of matches and Rafinha's been on the bench. So now Lamine needs to be rested. Boom, you shuffle Rafinha to the right, have him playing that match while Lamine Yamal is resting. So, there's options. Obviously, ideally, you want 2 players per position. But if not, there's options where you can move things around. Let's see. Petri says, bro, Julian can sort off. His mom doesn't speak a word. Let him go trophyless patético. By the way, where are people getting this? I've been seeing this a lot lately. With people like, oh, Julian needs to spin. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Why? Why should he? Like, why? Like, what's the reason behind that? I mean,
He told Atletico he wants to leave and go to Barca. Then he went to Barca and told them, hey, I want to join you. And he was like, okay, now negotiate. That's what every professional should do. It's the opposite. I don't want him to have a player who every time he has a problem, he runs straight to the press and airs out all the laundry. I don't want that. Do you want that? What happens if Julian has an argument with a teammate? Do you want him running to the press and air out everything that's happening in the locker room? No. It's like, I don't get this logic. I've been seeing it a lot. I was like, oh, he needs to. No, he doesn't. In fact, I'd rather him not do that, because why would you want a player that just runs to the press and airs out all the laundry? Like, I don't want that. I want players who, if there's a problem, they take it up with the coach, or if there are problems with the player, they take it up with the player, or if there are problems with the club, they take it up with the board, and not someone who runs to the press and airs out all the dirty laundry. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, but I feel like that's the professional way to behave, not run to the press and air out all your dirty secrets. Koroma says, I'm sorry, Mo. Today I'm late because of the job. Well, thank you, my friend, for being here. There's no need to apologize. I appreciate you joining. And Ron says, thanks, Mo, for explaining that. Best, Mo, no questions. Atletico Madrid keep going up and down the table, just like the word used. Bitches in the club be going up and down. Yeah, you ain't lying, man. It's like a roller coaster for them. It's like, wee. It's always the same, too. They start out strong, and then, or if they start out weak, somehow they start like gaining steam, and you're like, oh my God, here they go. And then they just completely deflate. It's just like what they do. Andrew says, hey, Mo, Andrew from Trinidad. Let's go. Trinidad and Tobago in the house. You know why I said that, even though you didn't write Tobago? Because someone taught me how to say Tobago. I think it was like last year here on the live. They're like, Mo, it's not Tobago, because I used to say Trinidad and Tobago. They're like, no, it's Tobago. So now I'm just proud of myself that I know how to say that. So I had to just like slip that in. Trinidad and Tobago, let's go. I really enjoy your program, and your views are always spot on. What is your view on Koundé remaining as Barca right back, seeing that we are strengthening our team? Look, I'm not going to lie. This season, I hated, well, hate is a strong word, but I disliked Koundé a lot. I thought he was so apathetic, so like he on the field, he looked like he just didn't give us two shits about the team, two shits about his teammates, or two shits about Flick or this club. And I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. I want to see players give it their all, because especially when you're seeing it. I understand if the whole team is like that, right? Like Atletico Madrid. Real penalties, right? You see them, they're all like that. And you're like, all right, well, I get it. If they're all playing like that, why would you want to be the one, to give it your all if nobody else gives a shit? But that's not the case with Barca, right? You look and you see Fermin running all over the field like a crazed man. You see Rafinha all over the field like an insane man. You look at Lamine, he's like carrying the attack, dribbling, trying dribble after dribble after. And if he fails, he grabs the ball and tries again and again. And then it's like, bro, what's your excuse? Everyone else around you is working super hard. Why are you being an asshole? So honestly, I disliked it a lot. I would prefer that Koundé would be sold. But if he stays, I don't think I would be super upset, because he's been at Barca, what was that, his 23, 24, 24, 25, 25 3 seasons? No, 4 seasons. 2 under Xavi, 2 under Flick, right? He's been at the club 4 seasons. 3 of them have been great, and 1 was bad. So I understand if he stays, I'm like, all right, that's just 1 off. 1 out of 4. He still has a plus, he still has a positive or a net outcome of positive seasons. And hope that if he does stay, that the next season he recoups his performance from the 3 seasons before. But then if I see him being shit next season, then he needs to be pushed out. The club need to do everything in their power to push him out. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. If you haven't hit the like button, make sure you do. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. And if you're watching this once it ends, drop a comment. Let me know what you thought about all the news. That is all. Thank you guys again. No more videos tonight. I'll try to make a video tomorrow. We'll see, even though it's going to be tough because I fly out in the afternoon. But if I don't have time to make videos Saturday, I will for sure make videos Sundays and every day after that, because even though I will be in Argentina, the news never stops. So I can't either. All right. Have a good night. And as always, Barça.